Your love, we thank you for this day and the opportunity that you've provided for us to be in your house, to worship you, to celebrate what you're doing around the world and in this community to restore your kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. Pray that you would be with us as we talk through this day, as we eat food together, as we celebrate together what your life means to us. Pray that you would help us to be moved and encouraged. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I was talking earlier to Jim about traveling, and Jim's been in South America. Has anybody else been to South America before? Jim's actually been there a ton to South America. Nobody else been to South America? Paraguay is in South America. And so that is the flag of Paraguay. That's where we've been over the last 2 years. There's an interesting fact about this flag. It is the only flag in the world that has a different symbol on each side. Every other flag has a symbol, and then this particular country, for whatever reason, has decided that they need two symbols on each side of the flag. So that was kind of one of the interesting things about Paraguay. And a lot of people don't even really know where Paraguay is. It's kind of down there. So the next picture has actually where Paraguay is. That's South America, and Paraguay is where it says Paraguay. In Brazil, Uruguay. We also lived in Argentina for 5 years. That's down south. And coming up, we're going to be working in both Paraguay and Bolivia, and they're the only two landlocked countries in South America, which means we do not have access to the coast. At one point, Paraguay did access to both coasts, but through different wars, they have lost a lot of land. And so they're down to where they are right now. So it's a small country, Paraguay. It's a land size about the size of California, but population is only 6 million people. So most of the country from about here up, is basically nothing. So most of the population is from about there down. So most of our work is in the southern portion of the country of Paraguay. And the work in Paraguay has really struggled tremendously. The church has been there over 30 years, getting on 40. And when we first arrived a couple of years ago, just a little over 200 members in the Church of the Nazarene. So there's a lot to do, a ton to do. Can I have a kid, somebody, a young man or young woman, who would be courageous to pass out some prayer cards? This will give you a picture of our family and some of our contact information. Thank you. What's your name? Luke. Pastor Luke. Can you pass those out for me? And you can give one a family or two or however many they want. If they want it signed, I'll do that later. Just kidding. Thanks, Luke. But the work in the church in Paraguay has been difficult. It has not been easy. And for years and years and years, there's been struggling to kind of explain it. It's like one step forward and 10 backwards every time. That doesn't take you very far doing that, right? You feel backwards. And that's really kind of what, when we first got to Paraguay, that's really a feeling. Even before we started to go there, a lot of people... It was kind of the joke when we served in Argentina that they would only send bad missionaries to Paraguay and Bolivia. And so when they told us where we were going, we were wondering what we had done to offend anyone. And that was basically our joke there in Argentina. But beautiful country, but the church has really struggled. Struggled for years and years and years. And so we kind of felt like, it's kind of like you feel like you're kind of held out there. A lot of resistance for you to be accepted and to be let in. There was a lot of hurt and pain from the missionaries. Thank you, Pastor Luke. Appreciate it. And so there was a lot of work for us to do as we got in there. 2 ordained ministers in the whole country, and both of those pastors really aren't motivated or doing anything. And so nobody, there's just very, there are pastors there, there's good people there, but the church was really not developed, and we really struggled. And so when we got there, my wife and I really began to pray about what God wanted us to do. When it's kind of, there's so much to do, you really need to be doing what you're supposed to be doing instead of just doing a bunch of stuff. It's easy just to start working and going 1,000,000 miles an hour and then you don't get anything done. So we really prayed a lot that God would show us what He wants us to do. Felt like that we needed to be involved in a local church and be involved in the development of a somewhat model church or healthy church or a model of what church could possibly be within the country. And so we decided that we were going to try to pastor a church. So we went around to several churches. There were several churches that were abandoned. Or there was somebody living there that wasn't doing anything. And so we just went around to these churches and prayed and prayed and prayed and asked God to show, what is it? What church? You got a bunch to choose from. Where do you want us to go? And so we came upon this church here. If you go to the next picture, I think it shows it. We came upon this church right here. And this is the backside of the house. I don't know if you can see. Can everybody see that kind of pretty well? It wasn't in very good condition. I'll just say that. It needed a lot of help. A lot of help. But there was just something about this property, something about this community, something about this church that drove us to want to be part of this. To see a true transformation happen. This particular church property is located on a corner. It's 4 different lots together. It has a pastoral home, the church, and then a building behind it that was basically destroyed. You can kind of see it off to your right. Trash everywhere. I mean, it's like trash had never been taken off for several years. And that church property was known as a very dangerous place. There were no more lights on. There was a person that was living in the house, but they were robbing the electricity. They had just connected directly to the power lines, which is very dangerous. And it was just a terrible, terrible testimony. And it said Church of the Nazarene on the front of it. So here's the Church of the Nazarene, and this is what we represent in Paraguay. And this is not positive. This is very, very bad. And so we really felt called to go into this. We felt called to move into this home. And my kids thought we were crazy. My wife was kind of there too. She thought I was crazy, but she felt like that this was doable, that this was possible. So we start this journey of first of all, just cleaning. I mean, we literally cleaned and cleaned and cleaned for probably 2 months just to even get the property clean, not even put together, put back together. And so for a few months, all we did is just work in the community. I was there almost every day. There was a local empanada place that I just ate all the time. And I just started to get in the community. I started to get to know people and meet people. And little by little, the property began to change. There was a wall in front of the property that people were getting assaulted. They were getting robbed and mugged and all kinds of other stuff at night because there were no lights. It was just a bad place. And so we start cleaning. The next picture is a picture of the side of that's our home now that we live in. And there's a bus stop in front of the church. So here's the parsonage, and then the church building is on the other side. And that's kind of what it looked like when I first arrived there. And then on the inside is what you saw was just trash everywhere. So we started working. We started cleaning up. You can see the next picture is going to be a picture of what it looks like now. We fenced it in. We painted it. We remodeled the house. Mostly a lot of cleanup and paint, and it's incredible that the community thinks that we're the ones that paved the road out front, because for 30 plus years they were waiting to pave the road. This road is actually paved. We took this picture before they asphalted the road. And so it was like everything started happening at once at this church. There's new life, there's growth, there's cleaning up, and then the road gets paved. They were so excited that the road got paved, they had a whole block celebration. I mean, we expect that a road's going to be paved. Actually, we get upset if it's not. And here there was just this celebration of something that we really, really take for granted here in the U.S. And for them, it was a big, big deal. So now our road is paved, and the church has just taken off. And it's exciting to see that kind of transformation. I can't even remember what's the next picture. Okay. There's what the bathroom looked like on the inside of the house. My wife was not okay with that. She felt like it needed to change. None of the plumbing worked. None of it was bad. When we first went through the house, it smelled like you see it. If you could imagine that, it was a really, really bad deal. And I think the next picture is basically cleaned up. We remodeled the whole bathroom. The bathroom stayed in the same place. We just put new stuff in it, put new tile in it. The next picture was the kitchen. And that was not good enough for my wife either. She did not feel like that was going to work. And so the next picture is going to be a picture of our new kitchen, which is pretty impressive. The just incredible transformation. And I'm not even sure what the next picture is. There you go. There's kind of a picture as we were finishing up, put new windows in it, and the structure of the house was the same. We just basically kind of gutted what was inside of it, and it was already gutted. We just had to clean a lot, paint a lot, and then it's a beautiful home. It's a gorgeous home, and then we moved into that home this last October. So we haven't even been in the house a year yet. We left before we even got 1 year in this home. But it was just an amazing transformation for this community, for this church. Not only visually, you can imagine the visual change in that. I mean, you can kind of see through those pictures. But when you add life to the property, too, where there was death, where there was destruction, where there was trash, where there was despair, where there was no hope. I mean, people didn't want to walk by the church. They didn't want to be very near the church. And here it is, Church of the Nazarene. So this is great. What a wonderful message. And then, so from nothing to over, I think the next picture is a kids' day that we had. Look at the kids' day that we had. Over 200 people on a kids' day in a property that was closed just months before. So it's just incredible to see what God has done from the ashes, from something that was in very, very poor condition. That's in that local church. So we focused a lot on that. But my responsibilities also work with the entire country. But there was not a lot of good ministry going on in the country, so we focused a lot on this particular church to get this off the ground. I think the next couple pictures show this is an event that we had in another church property, and it was a kind of a district unified service where people from the south and the north got together, packed out. This is incredible stuff for us. This is like earth-shattering, new, neat stuff that God is doing. And then this next picture, I think, is our district. It's a church activity that we had out of like a campground where there was a swimming pool, and we played soccer all day in the rain, but it didn't really matter. We were playing soccer. And then I think the next pictures, that's of right as we're getting ready to leave, and that's the picture that's on your prayer card. We really felt like a lot of times you'll take pictures, prayer cards, and all we've done before has been our family. Pray for our family. And which is great, but we really wanted to make this about what is God doing and what is this about? This is about people's lives, and it's about transformation. It's about this church that did not exist, not one person there. It was there before God allowed us to participate in ministry there. And so to see that, for us, we're blown away by it. To be honest with you, there was a lot of, and I'll talk about it in service later on, there's a lot of impossible things. And people telling us that it was impossible. Even before we went, this was not going to happen. And then to come back and see how God has done just mighty, mighty things is encouraging. It brings us hope. And that's really what God's placed on our hearts, this idea of hope. What is hope for our community? What is hope for our family? What is hope for Paraguay? And now as God is calling us into also working with Bolivia. What's hope for Bolivia also? So that gives you a little bit of a kind of an idea of visually what God has been doing in our lives over the last 2 years. It's been about a year and a half in this local church. We've not even lived in the house, not even a year yet. So we're just starting. God's raised up 2 local pastors out of that church that are now pastoring that church while we're not there. And they're having activities and vacation Bible schools and revivals and all that, and we're not even there. So God's already done really a miracle in stabilizing a church and really giving it a foundation for the future. And it's exciting to see that transformation. It gives me hope for many other things within the country and really around the world. And that's really kind of why we do what we do. is to see God do some pretty amazing things. God is transitioning us in other ways also, in other responsibilities. We'll be assisting with both countries now, both Paraguay and Bolivia, the central field that makes up the central field of South America. And so we ask for your prayers. I give you those cards, not just to throw darts at or stick them on your fridge or something like that, but to really pray for us. And I mean that, and I really encourage you to do that. We need those prayers. Paraguay needs those prayers. There's a spiritual battle, spiritual warfare going on within both countries, and we need your support and your prayers that God will continue to do what God wants to do. We've seen Him move mountains over the last couple of years. We've seen Him do things that for us are impossible. I was talking to Pastor as we were eating that things felt so impossible that we were drawn to pray and be on our knees for weeks. There was nothing else that we could do. And over this last Easter, we prayed 7 weeks in a row leading up to Easter, starting at 4 in the morning. And I'm not a morning person. So it was one of those crazy things that we were doing, and 8 to 15 people throughout that time were together at 4 in the morning praying for our local church, praying for our community, praying for the Church of Nazarene in Paraguay, praying for the church around the world. And I believe that's just incredible power there as we really depend on the source, which God is our source for everything that we do. We can do nothing if it is not through His power and strength. And God really began to open some incredible doors for us and for ministry and for the church in Paraguay. So I'm excited about what God has done. I'm excited about going back. We've been traveling now for a few months, and it's traveling, if you've ever traveled, we've been living in a suitcase for a few months now, so kind of want to unpack at some point. But through October, or the first week in October, we'll be traveling through part of Arkansas and Indianapolis and Michigan before we head back to Paraguay, where we live. I've got 3 kids. Our oldest on the prayer card is on the back side. His name is Andrew. He has finished up a year at Hillsong College in Sydney, Australia. And he took off and left us and is traveling around and now is working for a year to help pay for his stay there in Australia. But he's doing great. God is really doing incredible work in his life. And then the other 2 are on the other side in the middle with us by the flag. Alex is 18, finishing up this year with us, and then we'll be headed on somewhere. And our daughter, Alyssa, 15, who I'm never letting leave our house. She'll have to stay with me the rest of her life. She doesn't like that idea, but I do. And she's awesome. We've got great kids. This was a difficult transition for them to Paraguay. They were doing pretty good where they were, and we were living in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and they didn't want to leave. And great church, great house, great community, and they did not want to leave that. So this was big. This was a huge transition for them, and but God's done great things in their life too, teaching them pretty neat stuff. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a background of where we are. I talked to Pastor yesterday as we ate, and then John and Anna Mae about possibly doing this in Sunday school to give you an idea of where we are, what we're doing, and what the work of the Church of Nazarene looks like in Paraguay. And then also to give opportunities for conversation, for you to ask questions, and maybe you perked your interest about something, or about Paraguay, or about the work of the church there, or the work of the church in South America, or maybe even in other areas. I'll try to answer you. If I don't know the answer, I'll make something up. I don't know if there's anybody that maybe has a question about something. Did anybody go to camp? Is there somebody here from camp? I met you guys in a roundabout way at camp. We were at camp at one of the best campgrounds the Nazarene Church has in the world here on this district, and it was fun. We had a great time. We kind of started out at that, is going to camp there in Pinecrest. So it's good to see you guys again. Did you guys have fun at camp?
A little country by Uruguay, is it a country itself or down at the bottom there?
Yep. Uruguay is sits kind of below, tucked in by Argentina, and yes, Uruguay is a separate country, and that forms the southern part of the southern cone, is what they call the way we're divided out within the Church of the Nazarene, and also really within South America they call it the southern cone, and that's Uruguay, Argentina, and Chile, which is kind of the bottom of the cone. It looks like an ice cream cone, the bottom there, and then the top kind of Brazil and everything else. Yeah, so it's down on the southern. We speak Spanish?
You do?
Yeah.
What happened during that 30-year period that the church was established? Were there no missionaries assigned to that area? I mean, did the crime rate drop after you all moved in and cleaned up?
Tremendously, yes, absolutely. It's amazing what light does to a community to chase away the darkness. There were missionaries, and really there were good missionaries that came in and out, and there probably were some that weren't so great. And it's kind of like there were good times, but then right after that it just dropped. There was nothing to continue, and it fell completely back. And so it struggled a lot from maybe poor leadership. There's been some moral issues, and all of that just affects the church and the stability of the church and the growth of the church. And
no matter where they are.
no matter where you are in the world, that has a tremendous effect on it. Several missionaries, for whatever reason or other, they would come back for home assignment like we're doing and never even go back. And so there's a lot of, I even felt that on this particular, when I left just a few months ago, I could sense that a lot of pastors didn't believe I was going to, don't think we're going to come back. And it's just happened so many times to them that, well, okay, we'll see if they come back or not. And so there's kind of there's not a really good security within the way things have happened for a number of years. And but God is doing great things. We've seen really pretty neat things happen within the church, and God's raising up new leaders too that don't have all that background or that baggage. Maybe they're new Nazarenes that are coming on board, and God's raising up a new generation of leaders within the church in Paraguay. But a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors that caused that to happen. But there were good missionaries too there. There were great people, but for one reason or another, didn't continue on. And it's just the way it is. We just pray that God continues to take control of the church and the country and does what He wants to do in Paraguay.
Economic-wise, what kind of income is...
Paraguay has really, it's a poor country. It is definitely not a third world country, nor is it a first world country. It's somewhere in between. There's some people that live third world, some people live in extreme poverty, but not the entirety of the country. It's a developing country. In 2010, it had the highest GDP growth in Latin America, over 14, almost 15%, and has continued with that, close to that, all the way up until now. So the country is beginning to wake up economically and beginning to grow in leaps and bounds. They have a new president that was inaugurated just a couple weeks ago, who is a business-minded, has companies here in the United States also, and is kind of understands what it takes to be successful in the country. And we really pray that continues to move in that direction, because that affects local people and the economy and how things can progress. But it's a budding country. It's a growing, beginning to develop country within South America. Strategically located right in the center of South America. It's got the third largest free market zone in the world behind Hong Kong and Miami. And it's in Ciudad del Este. It's on the border of Brazil and Argentina. It means that a lot of money comes through that. It's kind of a tax-free zone, so a lot of commerce goes through that area. Millions and millions and millions of dollars go through that area. That goes then throughout South America. And fifth largest soybean exporter in the world. And water. Water is, they sit on the world's largest natural reserve of clean drinking water. So So there's some things that they have, but it's a small country, relatively speaking, and population is not that big. And people have really had to go outside of the country for jobs, but now recently, some people are starting to stay with the economy turning around, and that's good. It's good for Paraguay. Very good. So the country's coming around. It's a neat place to be. It's for us, a very easy place to live, and we fit in well and enjoy it.
And you have bars on the windows of your house, is that?
Yes. We do have bars on the windows. Everybody has bars on their windows there for whatever reason. It's better to have that. Not that we feel insecure where we are, but it just keeps honest people honest, and it's just better that way. But it's kind of weird. I feel like I'm in jail sometimes. But we're not. It's fairly safe. You just have to be wise about what you do, just about anywhere you are. To be wise.
You said last night you speak Spanish, and could you say something about it?
Spanish is the national language of Paraguay, along with what's called Guarani. It's an indigenous language that they've maintained. The Jesuit missions helped to maintain that language for a couple hundred years. It's one of the most preserved, widely spoken indigenous languages in the world because of many factors that way. They now teach it back in school. They were through dictatorship, which they did not allow through the dictatorship to be taught. They're Guarani, but now that the dictatorship is over with, they've been going back to teaching it in school again. And so it's a preserved language, but Spanish is what I speak. I don't speak Guarani. It's an interesting sounding language. It doesn't sound like a romantic language. It sounds very caveman-ish. Water is so if you're gonna, so it's incredible. And I've been outside of the capital city, where a lot of people outside of the capital city, that's what they speak. That's the language of Paraguay. And I'm totally lost. I depend on people that I'm with to help me understand what in the world's going on. Most of the time I just sit back and smile. And if I need to know something, I guess they'll tell me.
So do you have a translator like in your services? Do you have people who speak that language?
No, everybody speaks Spanish. If we go to a place like that is predominantly Guarani, I'll have somebody preach in Guarani. We'll just do it that way. But the country's run on the Spanish. Any business-wise, anything goes on is in Spanish. But sitting around the table, they're speaking Guarani. They're not speaking Spanish. And it's mixed. In most of the places, it's kind of like living on the border of Mexico and the United States. They speak Spanglish, where they mix the Spanish and English together. That's what they do with Guarani and Spanish. And they throw words in there. And I'm starting to get some of those words, but not that I speak Guarani in any shape, fashion, or form. My son, who's 18, is starting to learn more of it just because he hangs out with his friends, and that's what they learn, and so he's learning quite a bit of it. And I don't know that he knows all what he says. I'm scared sometimes of what he's learning, but yeah, he's starting to get it. My daughter's kind of doing a lot better in Spanish. She was fluent when we were in Argentina, but then we left for 5 years. She was pretty young, and so she was out of it, didn't have to speak it for 5 years, and that was tough on her. She's got it in there. She understands almost everything, but she's kind of timid, doesn't like to talk, and in order to learn a language, you got to talk. And so that she's starting that process. And she was mixing up Spanish and English with her mom the other day when they were doing schoolwork. She didn't even know it. So she's starting to get it again. It'd be good for her. These next couple of years will really help to solidify the language acquisition for her.
And you said your wife is homeschooling.
We do homeschool our kids. The Christian school, the private Christian school that is in Asunción, is about an hour drive away, and it's not a fun hour. It's not like get on the interstate drive an hour. It's bumper to bumper, difficult driving for an hour there and for an hour back, and this price of school just doesn't work for them. So they're doing it right there in the home, which is good and bad. There's challenges to that. You try to stay on top of it and have to keep going, but then there's flexibility in it too. We can do a lot of things. We can travel. We can go a lot of places, and they can still get it done. They're actually going through MU, Missouri University. They have a program online, so they actually will get their high school degree through MU High is what it's called, and so their exams are proctored and all their stuff is graded. And it's just weird because when our son graduates, he's the only one in his class. It's just there's no walking down the aisle, and it's it. And so that was we were talking about that the other day. He's number one in his class. Really proud of him. Really proud of him.
What's the currency rate as far as the dollar? How far can the dollar go in Paraguay?
It goes a long ways. When I first arrived in Paraguay, I called my wife and said, "We're millionaires." And it sounds like a lot, but when you 4,200 or 4,300 to a dollar, you can get to $1 million really quick. And so we'll buy things in the millions. And 100,000 guarani is it's $25, so that's normal. You go anywhere, 100,000, and I don't have it with me. I should have brought some. I usually do. But a bill that's 100,000, and it's only, a Coke is 5,000 guarani. So it's interesting in that effect. But the economy's doing well, and their guarani, which is their money, has held its value compared to some of the other countries like Argentina in South America. So they're doing well with it, but it's just odd being so far off. Usually kind of just do a calculation of 4 is what this makes it a little quicker to kind of calculate off of. A fourth of it is, or 100,000 would be $25. So it's interesting. It's interesting that to be in that. And the change doesn't really have a lot of value in it. There's not a lot of value. 2,000 South America. It's 50 cents.
Do you eat the food like we eat here, or do they have a lot of different foods over there? I'm sure that you eat and fry or whatever, or what do you...
Food is good. We are blessed by food in Paraguay because of the influence of Argentina and Brazil. And there's also a large European or Italian influence there. So and I was talking to Sue. Talking to Sue this morning. She's German, and we have a very large Mennonite German population in Paraguay. At World War II, they left through persecution and landed in Paraguay. And they are the farmers. They produce all of the dairy products and cheeses and meats, and it's wonderful. They know how to do it. They know how to farm, and they've been doing that now for generations. And so the German Mennonites are the producers of all that side of food. So we have German influence, we have Italian influence, and Argentine and Brazilian, which means we have really, really good food. A lot of free-range cattle, so the beef is very good. A lot of chicken, but it's pastas and everything. I mean, it's a lot of really good food. They do have something different. It's called mandioca, which is I don't even know what it is in English. It's a root. It's like a potato-ish, but it's a root. It's what is it called? Mandioca. I don't know. It's a big root, kind of a potato substitute, and that's what they have with everything. And it's hard for me to eat a meal without having mandioca now there. But it's not real flavorful or anything. It just kind of this white starchy potato, I guess is what it would be. But it's a long root, and they sell that by the truckloads. Everybody has mandioca.
So like their French fries here.
Right. Yes. Yes. But they don't fry it. They steam it, kind of like you would kind of steam a potato or bake a potato. They steam it, and then they eat it with every meal almost. Little bit different from eating in Argentina. The big meal is in the evening and late, so 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, they're eating big meal in Argentina, which is hard for me to do. But in Paraguay, lunch is the big meal. So they'll eat their big meal at lunch, and then they'll sleep a little bit. You know, they'll eat a big meal and sleep a little bit, then they work a little bit later into the evening. So in the middle of the day, they have their big meal, and then in the evening, it's a little bit lighter. Which to me is better. I don't do well eating a huge meal at 10 o'clock at night. It's just too hard. Interesting custom for them on Christmas is they eat at midnight. They celebrate together and have a massive meal at midnight on Christmas Eve going into Christmas Day. And that's really hard to wait that late to eat. I remember the first time we were there, we were eating with a family, and the other family that was coming was late, so it was 1 o'clock before we're eating. 1 o'clock in the morning to have, I mean, it was big dinner, sit down, table dinner, and I suffered for a couple of days after that. So we've broken that.
Can you get them on your cheese stick?
We can get any, yes, cheese, every kind of cheeses you can think of, other than sharp cheddar. That must be an American thing. But all the rest of the cheeses, yes, it's unbelievable cheeses. We'll go into, there's places called Little Germany and part of Paraguay. You'll go in and I feel like I'm in. But there's Germans and Albanians and all that kind of, that European bloc countries are represented in parts of it. It's weird. You'll leave Paraguay, it feels like you're in another country, and there's pine trees and not mountains but hills, and you really do feel like you've left South America and gone to Europe. But Europe has a big influence in Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, and Paraguay. That's been kind of the founding side of that Spanish and then also European influence within those countries.
Brazil, they speak French, right?
They speak Portuguese.
Portuguese.
And that also from Portugal, Europe. Portugal got the whole Brazil side, which is the biggest country in South America. The World Cup is going to be there in 2014. If you're familiar with soccer at all, that's a big deal. The United States doesn't get how big of a deal the World Cup is, but it is a big deal. Now, the fact that it's in South America, we're talking about trying to go. We're next year, we border to Brazil, so we're talking about trying to get in a bus and have some guys go to a match if possible. We can for the World Cup.
Transportation, you think you use public transportation, private transportation?
They've got it all. A lot of motorcycles, and that's becoming the more and more popular thing. They've become credit programs now, which is, I think, a terrible thing for Paraguay that people buy stuff on credit. And so motorcycles are selling by a dime a dozen. So motorcycles everywhere. There are a lot of cars, but not near as many as what they would be in ratio that we would have cars per people. Most of the people are in public transportation, which is buses. There's not really train transportation. Argentina there's a lot of train, but not in Paraguay. It's all buses. And the buses aren't very nice. They're not good.
They have American-made cars? Or
They do. They have a lot more influence from like Korea and Europe than they do. Yeah, Kia. They have a lot of that. I have a Kia, and I got it through Chile. They bring it in via Chile, which they come in through the ports in Chile to inside Paraguay. You have to be careful. One of the trucks I looked at was from Japan after the tsunami and the earthquake. It looked good on the outside, but then you look inside and it's been in salt water and it's destroyed. So you got to be careful. You can buy a lemon pretty quick. They don't restrict it. They don't restrict what you sell there. Very open market, very free market. Buy and sell whatever. Which is kind of nice because a lot of products that we get in Paraguay that we couldn't do in Argentina. Argentina restricts it a whole lot more. But you can get most any modern TV or phone or computer in Paraguay, which is kind of nice. You just have to be careful in how you do it. Some of them are fake. And so just through a regular distributor. If the deal is too good, it probably is too good.
Internet access.
Internet access, it's starting to get better. They've actually, in the capital city, started to do fiber optic. which is light years ahead of what we are. We have a very basic internet system, but we have it, and that's positive, and that's really all over South America. While it's not high speed, they do have internet access. We're getting there, but it got a long ways to go in Paraguay too. And that's the main city. Outside of the main city, it's pretty slow, but they do have internet. They have access to the internet, but it's not high speed internet.
And you were talking about Christmas, that's the beginning of summer?
Yes. They are opposite of what we are here. So your summer is their winter, your winter is their summer. So December, January, and February are their hot months, which is kind of fun. And I started in that, was the weirdest when we went to Argentina, and that was the case. But then we really got to love that. It creates a lot of other opportunities around Christmas that sometimes in the colder climates you're not really accessible to. So we have really enjoyed that. Fireworks are a big deal for Christmas and New Year's, and it's boy, they shoot a lot of fireworks off. It's fun. It's hot in Paraguay. Paraguay is where it's located. It's landlocked, and the city of Asunción is kind of down. It's subtropical, which means it's very humid. So our summers can be 100 plus with 100+% humidity, and it is unbelievable. It's hard. You would have to experience it. You can't explain it. We were talking with the pastor that these are pretty hot days, but they're beautiful. I mean, for us, a summer day is well beyond the reach of this. But beyond that, then spring or fall or winter are a lot nicer. They're more mild. You can still have a 90-degree. I was looking periodically at the forecast, and it's winter, and they'll have a day in the 90s or the 80s in wintertime. We had a winter camp, and the days were 75 to 80 degrees during our winter camp. But it can also get colder in the 30s or 40s at night, but not really. It's typically 40 to 60 during the winter is your typical winter temperature. Oh, it's not that bad. It's pretty nice. But then it quickly gets nicer, and your spring and your fall are beautiful, beautiful times of year. But summer can be hot, really, really hot.
So do you have any kind of cooling system?
We have air conditioners. You can survive without them, but I don't know how. It's not a lot of sleep will be going on with it being that hot, because it doesn't cool off. I mean, it's still close to 100 at night, no breeze, and humid. So people live outside. There are people that live out on the front porch or live on they just are outside all the time because it's hot inside, so you want a little bit more breeze.
So most of the public buildings and restaurants, are they?
A lot of the public buildings have air conditioning, yeah. But a lot of them don't too. It's not overly developed in that. But yeah, they've come a long ways in a lot of the public buildings to getting air conditioning into those. But most of the homes do not. They have some and maybe a bedroom has air conditioning for sleeping, but not in the house. Like our church is, there's no air conditioning in our church. So we have church earlier in the morning at 9 to 9:30 in the morning. Sunday morning is our church service, because later on in the afternoon it's too hot. Because it's a terracotta tile roof, and so that's basically like an oven. When it gets real hot, it just heats up and heats up and heats up. And it's just hot. We have bought air conditioners. We're praying that God will help us raise the funds to. The church was never wired for air conditioners, and so we have to rewire the church to install the air conditioners. So we're praying that God will help us, so we can have air conditioning in our church, which is starting to happen. There's starting to be places and churches that have that. Nazarene churches haven't had it yet. So we're working on it.
Okay, you mentioned to me that Ted and Lori Bruce, our NMI president of our district, have been working closely with you. Is there any talk of from the district?
There is, and I kind of will leave that with Ted and Lori, but they have been they've been very intentional about connecting with us and also the ministry in Paraguay, which is pretty exciting for us. We're starting over, really, in Paraguay. Although things have happened over years, there's nothing going on right now. And so we're just in the beginning process of having teams come and starting partnerships, and we talked a lot with Ted and Lori about those possibilities, and they're very encouraged about that, and I hope that if there's things that this local church would like to be involved in then you'll be able to express that to them, and we can kind of continue to build on what's already started. There's neat stuff started.
Hey, Carl.
So we start to build on that and move forward. Are we into church time yet? Okay. Okay, we can wrap this up. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. If you have more questions, I think we're going to be eating together later on, and we'll try to work through some of the rest of the questions. And otherwise, I appreciate it. Very good.